From the Bureau of the Connecticut State Department of Education, Performance Office, and Bureau of Special Education, we are pleased to present this training webinar on the early childhood outcomes. We will cover some of the background context for this data collection, the data gathering and reporting requirements, and the data collection portal for uploading a district's submission. We will also provide some information about resources that are available to districts in response to the current COVID-19 pandemic. Your presenters today are Dr. Andrea Brunell from the Bureau of Special Education and me, Dr. Gilbert Andrada from the Performance Office. Our contact information will be displayed on the following slides as well as on the slide at the end of this presentation. I am Gilbert Andrada, Education Consultant in the Performance Office. My email address is gilbert.andrada@ct.gov. This is the most efficient way to interact with me. My telephone number is 860-713-6883. My colleague in the Bureau of Special Education is Andrea.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Brunell, consultant from the Bureau of Special Education. My email address is andrea.brunell@ct.gov, and my telephone number is 860-713-6941. I work closely with Gil and others on special education and early childhood data. Please feel free to contact either of us with questions regarding ECHO. The best way to get in touch with us is through email. Gil is able to answer your questions about data collection issues, and I can answer questions that are about early childhood programming, policy, and instruction, including questions about ECHO administration.
The Early Childhood Outcomes Collection, an overview. Congress reauthorized IDEA in 2004 and required all states to provide data on the functional and developmental progress of young children with an IEP.
The purpose of this assessment of young children with disabilities who receive special education is to collect and report assessment information on these children's functional and developmental progress during preschool in 3 specific early developmental areas. Congress reauthorized IDEA in 2004 and included a requirement that all states provide data on the functional and developmental progress of all young children with an IEP. The purpose of the statewide assessment of preschool children who receive special education is to collect and report assessment information on children's functional and developmental progress during the preschool grades in 3 specific early childhood developmental areas.
Early Childhood Outcomes, or ECHO, is a data collection administered by the Connecticut State Department of Education, the CSDE, which looks at functional and developmental progress of preschool students receiving special education services in districts across the state. It is source data for indicator number 7, which reports the percentage of preschool children with IEPs who demonstrate improved social emotional skills, acquire and use knowledge and skills, and use appropriate behaviors to meet their needs.
Pre-test and post-test scores are required for each child in preschool who has an IEP. The current assessment used in Connecticut is derived from specific test items from the Brigance Inventory of Early Development, 3rd edition. The 3 developmental areas measured by the Brigance subtests are PSR, positive social emotional skills, including social relationships, AMN, using appropriate behaviors to meet their needs, AUKS, acquisition and use of knowledge and skills, which includes early language and communication and early literacy development. Preschool children with disabilities are expected to show improved developmental and functional skills in these areas over the course of their preschool experience.
Under the current context of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Federal Office of Special Education Programs, OSEP, has not waived any requirements of the IDEA. This includes state and local responsibility to collect early childhood outcomes for preschool students who have IEPs.
As you know, the typical administration of the Brigance for the ECHO requirement was interrupted during the COVID-19 health pandemic. The publisher of the Brigance, Curriculum Associates, was kind enough to give us temporary access to the electronic versions of the test items and the record book for remote use. Please note that this option may only be used when school is fully remote and there is no option for in-person administration. Also, when we no longer have a need for distance administration, these materials should be deleted as the publisher has only allowed us to use these materials temporarily. So how do we measure developmental progress? In Connecticut, we rate each child using 5 progress categories or levels of performance. A, did not improve skills. B, improved skills but not near peers. C, improved skills near peers. D, reached age-appropriate skills. And E, maintained age-appropriate skills.
Assessment data are summarized in 2 ways. The first summary statement is the percentage of children who entered performing below age expectations and who improved their performance to a level near or at the level of same-aged peers by the time they exit from preschool. The second summary statement is the percentage of children who were performing at or above their age level performance expectation by the time they exited from preschool. Please note that the ECHO requirements are also in place if a preschooler is exited from special education. This does not occur as frequently as children moving on to kindergarten with their IEP. Let's look at the specifics about the who, the what, and the when of submitting early childhood outcomes data.
It's very important that the Brigance pretest and post-test scores be submitted for all preschool children with an IEP. This includes preschool children receiving itinerant services. For example, a child who receives speech services, as well as children receiving special education and related services in a classroom program, whether the program is located in the school district or is community-based. This is a federal requirement and 100% compliance is mandatory.
There is, however, a difference between an IEP and a services plan. Services plans do not get reported in the Public School Information System, PSIS, so the requirements do not get linked to the special education data. ECHO testing is not required for children with a services plan. Students who have an IEP are reported in PSIS. ECHO testing is required for students with an IEP. The PSIS and ECHO systems use the following data elements to match records from the PSIS registration: Nexus District, Nexus District Entry Date, Nexus District Exit Date, and grade are used. From the PSIS collection, Special Education Indicator, Nexus District, and grade level are used. To report a student in ECHO, the student must have your district listed as the Nexus District in PSIS, PSIS registration, and the most recent PSIS collection. The student must be reported in PSIS registration in the most recent collection with grade level equal PK or P3. The student must have an active PSIS registration record with no Nexus exit date.
So when should children be assessed? All eligible students must be assessed at 2 points in time. Point 1 is the pretest. The pretest is completed upon entry into preschool and must be conducted within the initial 4 weeks of the child receiving special education services on an IEP. Point 2 is the post-test. A post-test is completed upon exiting preschool or special education. The post-test must be conducted during the last 10 weeks of the academic school year for children exiting preschool to go to kindergarten. If a child is exiting special education or moving to another state, a post-test is also required.
Please note these important deadline dates for ECHO reporting. The ECHO data collection is accessible all year. Districts must adhere to the October 1 timely reporting deadline for pretests and the June 30 deadline for post-tests. To aid in monitoring your submissions, the CSDE provides reports in the ECHO system that will list students for whom a pretest or post-test is required. See the Reports and Downloads feature in the ECHO system. You will want to view the reports entitled district students that require a pretest, and district students that require a post-test. Districts must do the following to meet the timely reporting deadlines. Enter pretest scores for all students for whom your district is listed as Nexus District. Grade equals PK or P3, and special education equals yes in the October PSIS collection. The timely due date to enter pretest scores is October 1. Enter post-test scores or provide a reason for no post-test scores for all students that have only pretest scores in ECHO and who have moved on to kindergarten as indicated in the October PSIS collection. The timely due date to enter post-test scores is June 30.
Feel free to contact Gil or me if you have any questions about ECHO. I can answer questions about special education and early childhood policy, programming, and instruction. Gil manages the data collection and can help with issues about submitting data to the portal. There are materials, including frequently asked questions, that are available that can answer most of your questions.
Within the ECHO portal, the following documents are available to you under the link for reports and downloads. A full ECHO user guide, the ECHO frequently asked questions, the ECHO upload template and instructions, the Brigance pre- and post-test data entry forms, instructions on when to administer alternative tests, the Brigance ordering instructions from Curriculum Associates, and the electronic portions of the Brigance, which are only to be used for students who are accessing full remote learning. The system is always open and can be found on our portal site by clicking this first link. The ECHO help site can be found on our portal site at this second link. The links on this presentation are live and will send your browser to these websites.
If you want to know more about the ECHO process, I recommend that you start by reviewing the written guidance that can be found on the ECHO Public Help site. The user's guide and frequently asked questions will be especially helpful.
If your inquiry is of a technical nature concerning the submission of data, begin by familiarizing yourself with the ECHO user guide, but remember, you are invited to contact me. Let's look at the nuts and bolts of submitting your district's data. We are currently using the legacy system for data entry. The ECHO data submission is going to be part of a more comprehensive system that is being developed at this time. We are at early stages of development. Begin by navigating your browser to the portal address. It is recommended that you use Internet Explorer as your browser. Select the Enter button. Your special education director has been supplied with login credentials for this site. Remember that they are different from the credentials that you will need for the next step, logging into the ECHO site. Select the Early Childhood ECHO data collection option. Logging into the ECHO system requires a user ID and a password that is specific to the ECHO system. I am able to reset a district's password, but be warned that this will change the district's access to ECHO for all users. If you find that you don't remember your district's user ID and/or password, I recommend that you consult with other users first before asking your special education director to request a password reset. Once you have logged in, you will notice three menu items: Reports and Downloads, Add a Student Record, and View Tested Students. Click Reports and Downloads to view available reports and resources for download, including the set of electronic ECHO assessment documents. Click Add a Student Record to manually enter a single Brigance record or to use the upload feature. Click View Tested Students to view all to view a list of students you reported with a pretest or post-test for the open collection year. These reports are available to you under Reports and Downloads. The district students that require a pretest report lists students reported as grade PK or P3 with a special education indicator of yes in a recent PSIS collection wherein your district is listed as the Nexus district, but who do not have a pretest score entered or a valid reason provided for not having a pretest score. The district students that require a post-test report lists students for whom ECHO pretest scores were entered, but then have been reported in a subsequent PSIS collection as kindergartners, for whom either no ECHO post-test scores have been entered or for whom a valid reason for no post-test scores have been provided. The preschool social knowledge and behavior skills individual report provides student-level progress outcomes categories for previous reporting years. The preschool social knowledge and behavior skills aggregate report provides aggregate district-level data on progress outcomes for previous reporting years. Here are some reminders about things that must be true to enter a student record. The student must have your district listed as the Nexus district in PSIS registration and appropriate PSIS collections. The student must be reported in both PSIS active registration and the most recent collection with grade level equal PK or P3. The student must have an active PSIS registration record. The student must be reported as special education equals yes in the most recent PSIS collection. Be sure to work with your district PSIS coordinator to verify appropriate reporting. To be able to edit a record, the following things must be true. You must have and use an accurate SACID, a state-assigned student identifier, last name and date of birth, as reported in PSIS. The student must have your district listed as Nexus District in PSIS registration. The student must still have an active PSIS registration. This refers back to the timely entry of test data. So here is a point of caution. You will not be able to review a record for a student who has moved from your district and has entered a new Nexus district. That record will appear on the new districts list, and you will have to coordinate with them to make a change.
Best practice is to pretest every preschool student who has an IEP. This should be done within 4 weeks of the child receiving special education and related services. Although it may seem that a child will not require a post-test, you never know what will happen in the future to change this. So it's better to have the pretest scores than to unexpectedly need them after it's too late to pretest. A child might not need a post-test if the child unexpectedly exits your district before a post-test can be administered. If this happens, you'll have to supply a reason why the child who has a pretest score in ECHO does not require a post-test. If you use the other option for this, you must also supply a reason in the accompanying text box.
It is a good idea to periodically view the reports for your district. This way, you will be alerted to new students who appear on your list who may have transferred into your district. Here are a few typical scenarios. If a preschool student enters a district and is determined to be eligible for an IEP, that district must enter and administer the Brigance and enter pretest data. If a student attends preschool in your district for, say, a year, then leaves the district and is exited from your list in PSIS, your district will no longer be able to see the child's record in your district's list. If a previous preschool student with an IEP enters your district as a kindergartner, your district will see that child listed as requiring a post-test. The upload feature allows a district to upload pre-test and post-test data for students who may have left the district prior to having their scores entered into the systems. Go to the reports and downloads. Download a copy of the ECHO upload template. Enter the student's scores in that template. On the next slide, we'll go over the procedure for uploading this file. Here are some tips on one page that you may use as a reference. Download and save a copy of the ECHO upload template to your local computer. Enter the student's SACID, date of birth, pre- and post-test indicator, and test date into the appropriate rows, as well as the student's Brigance item scores. Please do not alter the field formats. The date of birth and test date fields should be entered as follows: MMDDYYYY. For example, 06192015 for July 19th, 2015. Notice that there are no slashes in the dates and that single-digit months and days require the leading zero. Microsoft Excel has some automatic features affecting dates and fields with leading zeros. Be sure that these fields retain their format as text fields so that the dates and fields with leading zeros can be stored correctly. Please be sure you have provided appropriate numerical values for all the required mastery and missed items. Include the end of record marker, the letter X, for each record or row you have entered into the upload template. Next, delete the top 2 rows of the template so that all that remains are rows with the scores. Leaving the header rows will cause your upload file to be rejected. Next, save your submission using the comma-separated file type, the CSV file type. Log into ECHO and go to Add a Student Record. Scroll to the bottom of the page and click Browse to find the star.csv file you have just created on your local computer. Log into the ECHO and go to Add a Student Record. Click Upload. If the file passes all checks, the ECHO administrator will accept or deny the upload.
Here are some best practices. Enter pre-test and post-test records soon after administration. By entering data as the ECHO is administered, you'll avoid many issues that can occur when all the data is saved for bulk entry. Being proactive will save you from unnecessary stress. This way, you can address issues as they occur without risking not meeting deadlines. Please note that ECHO records disappear with Nexus exit in PSIS. Nexus districts are responsible for ensuring that their magnet school and outplay students are appropriately assessed and the data is entered. Districts should monitor and manage which students require a post-test in addition to using the ECHO reports in the system. Make sure Brigance item level information is accurate and complete. You should work with your teachers to be sure they understand the administration of all the required test items. Be sure to review frequently asked questions, and districts must address status 2 errors on pre-test and post-test records. This error indicates that there's a missing or an incomplete record.
Some final reminders. All Brigance data must be submitted to meet the timely deadline. Avoid delaying reporting data in the system. The timely date is October 1 for pre-test data and June 30 for post-test data. The accurate deadline is October 15th, and the freeze date for these data is November 1. Be sure to update your district's contact information in ECHO. It is to this person that notifications will be sent. Districts have the best information about which child requires testing. Internal processes should be developed to ensure that each child, for whom it is required, is tested accordingly.
Thank you for watching. We really appreciate your attention to meeting all of the ECHO requirements.
Once again, if you have further questions regarding the ECHO data collection or would like to discuss special cases, please contact us.